please meet Haley Pavone, CEO and founder, Passion Footwear. Haley, welcome this morning.
Thank you, Donica. It's a thrill to be here.
Why don't you just give us a little background about you and Passion?
Sure, absolutely. So I started my journey with Passion Footwear back in 2016 when I was a junior at Cal Poly here in San Luis Obispo. And I really just became inspired to get into this space to solve my own personal pain point, literal pain point of high heel pain and inconvenience. It came to a head for me actually at my sophomore year of college. I'd gone to a sorority spring formal and worn 6-inch platform stilettos, as one does when you're 20 years old, going to a sorority spring formal. And as any women tuned in know, you can't dance in 6-inch platform stilettos. You kind of like wobble side to side in agonizing pain. And that wasn't working for me. I really wanted to bust a move and tear up the dance floor. And so I solved this problem of my heels hurting the same way most young women do, of taking my heels off and going onto the dance floor barefoot. Unfortunately, that ended with my very literal pain point inspiration of another young woman who still had her heels on, stepping on my barefoot and actually impaling me through the foot with the ball point of her stiletto. So as I was sitting there, literally yanking her stiletto out of my foot, I can only describe it as this light bulb moment of I started to look around the room and realized almost every woman there was barefoot, except for this gal that had just impaled me. Although she was barefoot now too, because her shoe was in my foot. Um, and I just started thinking back to all the times I'd worn high heels to formal events like that, or to professional events, or even just, day-to-day life going out with friends, and how many times I'd either ended up barefoot, brought backup shoes, paid money to Uber 4 blocks because my feet were hurting, all these various Band-Aid solutions that women have to their heels hurting. And I found it very odd that there's this whole category in women's fashion that exists where, they make this product for women, they market it to women, they know that it hurts women, and yet the burden of solving that problem does not fall on the manufacturer. It's falling on the consumer of, hey, this shoe's going to hurt you. We don't really care. It's on you to figure out how to handle that and problem solve your product in real time. I thought that was an alarming oversight by the industry, and so felt really inspired to get out there and try to create a modern version of a high heel that could actually keep up with consumers and kind of kick the whole beauty is pain mindset to the curb. And what ended up resulting from that was the invention of fully convertible heels. So our product line at Passion is a full line of shoes. We've got sandals, pumps, boots. I'm wearing some of our Dior's right now. I think Donica's got some sandals on. And you can actually remove the heel itself and turn the same shoe into a flat that's made out of sneaker grade athletic midsoles. So 3 times more cushioned and more comfortable than any other heel on market, as well as a very comfortable flat. And then you can also swap out the heels to adjust the height, the shape, the style, and really create custom looks and make the same pair of shoes go a lot farther. So really what we've created is the most versatile footwear option in a woman's closet that blends comfort and style without compromise in a way that's really never been done in women's fashion before. So that's kind of the backstory.
That's the origin story.
Yeah.
Painful, but true. And I can attest they are very comfortable shoes. I've worn them to weddings, and you're there for a long time, and then you can they come with this cute little bag in the box where you can bring the heel covers to pop off your higher heels and then put on the low ones, and you're still dancing and not barefoot. So it makes it very easy, and people are always like, what happened? Where'd you get those shoes? And of course I tell them, this amazing young woman I know invented them. And so you have also been through Cal Poly CIE's many programs. So
Yes.
you are an alum. Entrepreneurship is in your blood, and and you concentrated in that, but you started on with all the campus programs. So elevator pitch,
Yes.
won that.
Yes, won first and second place at elevator pitch, which was interesting.
Yeah, Innovation Quest.
Innovation Quest, yes, we won first place there. And then we went to the Hot House Summer Accelerator Program.
That's where I think we first met.
We met, yeah.
I met Haley when she was in the Summer Accelerator program. So for those of you who don't know, the CIE has various student academic programming, and it culminates in the Summer Accelerator 12-week program for up to 8 teams. And then you came to our incubator program.
Yes. So finished up the Hot House Accelerator, participated in Demo Day. Nobody wins Demo Day, but we did raise $450,000 at that event. So that was a win for me personally, as our first seed round. And then that was enough money for us to go into the incubator, which was actually then, backtracking the timeline during my senior year of college. So while I was finishing up my degree, was working in the incubator to keep building the company, with the goal being by the time I graduated, I wanted us to be stable enough to come on full time. And luckily I was able to succeed in that. So this is kind of the only job I've ever known, aside from being a Starbucks barista, which was a great job, but this is more fun.
Definitely more fun. And you were in the first AngelCon.
Yes.
Top 6 finalists.
I was a top 6 finalist.
And for those of you who don't know, AngelCon is our annual pitch event, investor training event on May 1st, where we'll have a new cohort of top 6 finalists pitching as well. So you've done all the programs.
Pretty much everything, except I didn't do Startup Weekend for anyone from Cal Poly. I skipped that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did everything else.
Now, originally you did have a co-founder, but she went off to do
Lockheed Martin.
rocket science.
Yes.
So,
yes. Which was the high heel game was too small. She needed to go to space. I think she's doing very well there.
Yeah. But you truly, for the 90% of the journey, you've been a solo founder.
Yes.
And how have you found that? How's it? We talked a lot in our incubator roundtable. We have a couple teams that are solo founders, and how have you found that journey? Do you wish you had a co-founder? Do you like having more of the decision-making power?
I like it. I mean, I think there's pros and cons, of course. When you're a solo founder, there is a degree of loneliness that comes with that, because when obviously I have a team, I have 11 employees now, and they're all fantastic and we're very close. But when certain things happen in the business that maybe aren't the best, as a leader, I don't feel comfortable sharing those things with them necessarily in the same way that I think I would with a co-founder. So there's a lot of lonely nights dealing with any of the negatives that come our way, which there always are in every startup. So that part is tough. However, I do think being a solo founder, I've been able to get really clear on our vision for the company, have my hands involved in any aspects that I want to. And this is my baby, so I find a lot of satisfaction in that. And I also think we're able to move very quickly and, again, very decisively. Obviously, I haven't really worked with a co-founder in a long-term sense, but I do know from just observing other startups on the scene that sometimes having too many cooks in the kitchen is not the best thing. And so I think overall it's been a positive, because it's let me set a really clear direction and be sure that we're building the company that we want to, and also just move a lot faster, because there's not, for better or worse, there's not a lot of debate on the decisions that need to be made. So at least we can move in a direction quickly, whether that's the right or wrong one. But yeah, a little bit of both.
Is there a particular moment in time where you felt that the product that you developed was really validated and you had, in the market, and that this was going to really
the cube
sell? Like, you were really gonna get it out there, and people are gonna buy it?
There have been a lot of validating moments throughout the journey. It's gotten progressively more and more validated. I'd say the first thing that sticks out actually was the elevator pitch competition. We didn't even have a product then, but to just go out and pitch the idea, and as I hinted at earlier, the first place was picked by judges and the second place was picked by the audience, and I was selected for both, so kind of swept the competition there. But that was really the first time I'd presented the idea publicly and had a lot of anxiety around how it was going to be received because it was the first time I'd ever spoken about it. And so to have such a positive outcome for that event, I was like, wow, I'm really onto something. This is something people are interested in and see a lot of value in. And that's really what gave me the confidence to keep moving forward with it. So that was kind of the first validation point. I'd say the second one was the first wave of reviews we got on our first shipment. We shipped 300 pairs of shoes from Kickstarter. It was the first time we'd ever shipped out product. And my God, there were so many hiccups in getting that to actually happen. But once we had, all those shoes with customers, the feedback was incredible. I mean, the return and exchange rate was shockingly low. One of the biggest things I noticed was the industry average return and exchange rate for online footwear is 30%. And even in our very first shipment, we were only at 15%. So outperforming industry dramatically. We're now down to 8%, which is really incredible. But just knowing that people were so satisfied with the product, they were coming back to buy more, like really getting into the market, I think is the most validating thing. I'm always going to be an advocate for once you have a minimum viable product, please just launch it so you can learn and go from there. That's much more validating than just iterating internally forever. And then furthermore, I think the most recently validating thing has again just been seeing that customer behavior take on a whole new life since we released the second version of the product. Kind of going back to that MVP point, we had our first version on market for 2 years, took all the customer feedback. I loved that version of the product, but when you're creating something new, you don't know what you don't know. And so we were able to get a lot of good insights from our customers on things we could do to make it better. Redid it, launched the second version in 2022, I want to say. And since then, it's been so incredible to see, our customer retention is our best metric in the business. We have 45% of our top line revenue last year came from repeat customers. And that's not usually even their second purchase. It's like, I think on average, a customer that's been with us over a year has bought at least 6 times. So really validating to see that and know, okay, we've built something that once people try it, they really love it and want more of it. I mean, what more can you ask for? Especially in an industry like shoes where there's so much competition.
Yeah.
They could get a shoe. I mean, they can't get a convertible shoe anywhere else, but they could get a shoe a lot of different places. So for them to be coming back time and time again, every 52 days on average, is really validating.
How do you think you've captured that brand loyalty?
Ooh, I think it's a mix of things. There's 2 main things that come to mind. The first is we really have done something different. Something I've always been very laser focused on is I don't see our company as just creating a new brand or a new shoe even. We really are creating a new category in the space that's bringing a unmatched value to the consumer. And I think that's proven out in the behavior. But what we've really done is change customer behavior, and that inherently breeds loyalty. So once a consumer has bought a product from us, let's say a sandal, she gets used to, hey, when my heel hurts, I can take it off. Hey, if I don't want to be in a stiletto anymore, I can put on a block. I can change the height. Once she's used to that in her sandals, suddenly she's looking at her, I don't know, Sam Edelman boots, right? And going, God, I want to take the heel off that too. Like, why wouldn't I want it to, now that I'm used to this, why wouldn't I want that from every shoe that I offer? And so we've always been very focused on making sure our assortment of product covers all the basic footwear closet needs. So, we don't just make sandals, we make all the core staples that a woman would expect to find in her closet. And because of that, we've been able to really become a wardrobe replacement and breed that loyalty. And then the second piece is the customization business has made it actually really easy. Think of like a razor blade model of once they buy into the shoes, the various accessories are a fourth, fifth, sixth, I can't do math, a very low percentage of the cost of the shoe, right? So they've already invested in this shoe product. Now there's these, relatively impulse purchase upsell products. It's not a huge economic burden to grab these, depending on how many shoes from us they have. Like, let's say they have 4 black shoes, right? And they buy some new heel that looks good on a black shoe. They feel like they just got the value of 4 new shoes because it'll go onto all those shoes for $50. So we joke that it's girl math for anyone familiar with the social media trend, but basically the more you buy into Pashion, the more economically advantageous each additional heel kit purchase becomes. And so we've really been able to breed this kind of almost like collector's edition mindset. To that point, we also do limited runs of our accessories. So we'll only make 500 of something and say, hey, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. There's a whole aftermarket Facebook page now that our customers started going, hey, who's got like XYZ heel from the spring 24 collection? And so we've really been able to just breed some pretty intense loyalty to the product because of those behavior changes.
And I know you recently talked to one customer that has spent quite a lot of money with you. How many pairs has she
Alicia.
purchased?
I don't know I'm trying to remember pairs. I know the dollar, the dollar figure. She popped out in my 2024 end of year reporting. I kept seeing this name pop up. This wonderful woman in Texas bought her first pair of shoes from Passion in March of 2024. By December of 2024, she had spent $23,000 on our shoes. She actually, it was great. I reached out to her and said, I'd love to have a Zoom with you and understand what we're doing right. And she took the Zoom from her Passion room. She has a whole wall.
Passion wall, just like you have.
Yes, she does. I thought I was the only one with a passion wall. No, she's got one that rivals mine. It's quite impressive, actually.
And now you can buy bags to take your heels with you on travel, and you're doing
storage displays
as well, so you don't have to keep them in your fridge or your oven. If you've seen any of Haley's TikToks, or and then you're doing co-marketing with some other brands.
Yeah, we're really enjoying. Now we're kind of, I've seen all these different phases of the business. Of the first few years was really product development, just engineering this thing, getting the IP protected. Then when we launched with the first version, it was very much just let's learn what about the product works and what doesn't. Got that new version out. It was like, okay, let's prove this works, grow a business, grow loyalty. Now we're at this fun phase where we know the product is good. The business model's proven. We closed 19% EBITDA last year, which I'm very proud of. So now that we've been able to validate the product and validate the business model, we're really focused on building a lifestyle brand, which is really, really fun because you get to answer these questions of, hey, we accidentally made this storage issue of there's these heel kit components that don't fit into, shoe storage you could buy from Wayfair. They're a random size. And so now we get to make our own storage and make our own purses with compartments and really just kind of let the convertible category shape out, which is really fun.
That's amazing. And you have online partnership with Nordstrom?
We do. Yes, we have 5 shoes on Nordstrom.com now. Already up from, we launched 1 in October and they already re-upped to 5 starting at the beginning of this year. The ultimate goal is to get in store. That's what we're pushing for. Unfortunately, getting into retail stores is harder than you would think these days, but we're hoping to be in store before the end of the year is the goal.
And tell us a little more about the bridal program.
Yes. So the bridal program was kind of a wild market insight of, I think you mentioned wearing them to weddings. We were trying to figure out, good ways to do organic grassroots marketing that was at a low cost because we're a startup, we have no money. And an insight that we had was, okay, we know our customers are really enthusiastic about this product. They love showing it off. They love talking about it. They're building these massive collections. I appreciated that they're our best sales asset. We as a brand can tell a customer the shoes are great all day. They're always going to be skeptical because of course the brand is going to say that. It has a lot more value, when the endorsement is coming from a personal friend or someone that you trust. And so we were trying to figure out who of our really rabid customers is a high visibility micro influencer with a sphere of influence. And brides were the first one that came to mind because we had started to notice our white shoes were outperforming, like selling really, really well. And we were trying to figure out why. And we got, social media content back and noticed in reviews this constant theme of women were buying them to wear to weddings, which makes a ton of sense. You want to be in heels for your ceremony, and then you're going to dance all night at your reception and want to be in flats. And I realized, wow, that's a fascinating case study because the bride's wearing the shoes, but every female guest at that wedding and every bridesmaid has the exact same problem of I want to be in a heel at the ceremony, but I want to dance in a flat later. They're all looking at the bride all night. And they all trust her and know her at least well enough to be invited to her wedding. And so to me, I was like, this is the epitome of a high value consumer with a captive audience of influence. And so we launched this bridal ambassador program a year and a half ago, I want to say. Where basically what we do is we tell brides, if you sign up for the program, you're going to get half off your wedding shoes. You can get 30% off for your bridesmaids, and then you can get 25% off for any guests at your wedding. The only thing you have to do in exchange is put a link to Passion with your discount code on your wedding RSVP site. For anyone that's been invited to a wedding recently, they don't really send out, I mean, they do send out physical save the dates now, but everyone gets directed to a website that has an FAQ section. And on 95% of these websites, one of the top FAQs is what's the dress code, or what shoe do I wear in some cases? Because women want to know, is the wedding outside? Is it in a ballroom? Like what thickness of heel can I get
Are
away
you
with?
walking on grass where your stiletto
Exactly.
would go into the grass?
Or on cobblestones or up a hill or God knows whatever. And so that was the other trend I noticed was I got invited to 8 weddings the year that we did this. And I realized that every FAQ page was talking about heels. I thought, what a great opportunity to plug an affiliate link. And so all they have to do is put the link there and promote the shoes. The program's been wildly successful. It makes up for about 10% of our new customer acquisition. It costs us nothing. It's an extremely profitable program, and it actually grows itself because I think about 30% of new bride signups are women that were either a bridesmaid or a guest at a wedding that a bride in the program was at. So it's been self-growing, very profitable, and fun. And we get a lot of great wedding pictures back, which is awesome.
Fun. Now, it hasn't always been fantastic.
No.
Some of you might not know, but Haley and I have worked together for many years.
8 years, I think. Yeah.
So, fundraising has been a very difficult journey. And, you're not a traditional tech startup, even though you've invented something new, you have patents, you have trademarks, you have the IP that a lot of other shoe brands might not have.
Yeah.
You've found it very difficult to go the traditional funding path. Can you tell us some learnings from those pitches and those rejections and that process?
It's interesting to think about learnings. I've learned a lot personally, I guess. I've learned a lot about personal resilience. I think this process, being an entrepreneur in general, teaches you really who you are at your core and what you can tolerate. Your pain threshold is tested pretty much every day. I haven't found the bottom of mine yet, which is why I'm still here. But no, I mean, fundraising's been a really difficult journey for us. To be fair, I think part of it was being as young as I was, unfortunately. And actually, I don't want to say to be fair, it's not fair, but I appreciate that, I was walking into rooms with very seasoned investors, and I was 20 and a Starbucks barista and had no experience in footwear, and I'm asking for $500,000 to make this crazy shoe. The number one question always was, if this is possible, why hasn't Steve Madden done it? Why are you, a 20-year-old Starbucks barista, going to do it if Steve Madden can't? And all I could really say was, because I care. And that ended up being enough. But sadly, to most investors, it was not in the early days. So, we raised money in the life of the company. To put it in perspective, we've raised about $4 million in investor funding, which is great. I'm so grateful. But to put it in perspective, to your point, we have utility IP. We're a profitable business. We posted 1.2 million in profit last year. And the footwear industry average is 10%. And as I said, we closed at 19. So our metrics are very strong. You look at, these are great companies, but just to share perspective, Rothy's, no IP. They are profitable, but they've raised $350 million. 2 male co-founders, putting that out there. Allbirds, no IP, wildly unprofitable. They actually lost about 130 million bucks last year. They've raised over 500 million, 2 male co-founders. So it's tough to not feel like maybe the odds are stacked against us a little bit. The argument that always comes up is, again, to be fair, not really. This has been the worst time to build a shoe company. We've been put through a disproportionate amount of challenges. There's never a great time to start a business, but I mean, we launched on market June of 19, so we had about 6 months before pandemic, trade war, supply chain crisis, recession. Now there's like trade war part two, iOS 14. Yeah, I mean, every startup has issues, but I think we've dealt with a few global unprecedented crises that are a little disproportionately bad for things like wearing footwear outside of your house. So that's been challenging. So that's played into the funding climate too. Although again, I always go back to Allbirds and Rothy's both raised over 100 million in this same time period. Yeah. So who knows? Who knows what's going on? But the bright side of it all, to put a positive spin, is I was actually just talking to Donica about this because I often wonder why it's been so challenging, because it's very frustrating. You know, I come to the table, I know what our metrics are, I know they're stronger than other companies that have raised much more money, and yet we sometimes just cannot get funded. Yeah. And on the bright side, what I have realized is if I'd gone and raised 300 million, it would have been nice. But I always would have wondered, you know, how big of a role that played in my success. I'm sitting here today as the founder of an incredibly profitable, fast growth business. And that is because of my team and I. And I know that for a fact, because we've had a lot of things try to take us down, and it is sheer chutzpah that has kept us around. So yeah, that's something I can hang my hat on, and no one can ever take away from me. And I'm very proud of that.
And you should be. It's been a lot of long talks about fundraising.
Yes. Donica gets my like 2 a.m. crying calls. Yeah.
But it's been fun along the way too.
It has.
And
yes.
You were in Shark Tank.
I was.
And you turned down.
I did.
A royalty offer.
I did.
Tell us more about your experience preparing for Shark Tank, them filming and then cutting it down to a small portion of what they filmed, and then you turning down the offer.
That was one of those 2 a.m. calls where I was like, yeah, the Shark Tank process was wild. A lot of people don't know. It's a 8-month audition process. So you start auditioning in January, I want to say, and don't film until August or September. And throughout that whole period, it's cut round after cut round after cut round. So they had 40,000 applicants for my season, and 120 of us filmed for only 80 to go to air. So you can even film and not have your episode air, which is brutal. But anyway, went through that whole process, getting ready for TV. Luckily, something a lot of people don't know about me, I went to a performing arts high school. So the audition process wasn't too stressful for me. I'm comfortable with being on camera, which has played a great deal in my TikTok career now, which was an accident. But yeah, went through that whole process. It was very intense. Actual filming is really interesting. I had a particularly unique experience because I filmed in 2020. So I was going through that process with all the COVID protocols, which added some anxiety. I was, I don't know if I'm legally allowed to say this. Can I say this? I think I can. I was locked in a room for 10 days with.
I recall I think you were in Vegas.
I was in Vegas, yeah.
In a hotel room.
For 10 days. Yeah, I got locked in there. I wasn't allowed to see another human. Food just like appeared at my door, which was interesting. And I couldn't, since it's Vegas, you couldn't open the window either. So I had no fresh air for 10 days, which, fun fact, if that happens to you, your skin starts falling off. So that was fun. I was like, oh, good, I'm going on national TV tomorrow and my skin is falling off. It's awesome. So anyway, that was psychologically interesting. And then all of a sudden you see no one for 10 days and then you're just like, there's Mark Cuban. It was wild. But anyway, went into the tank and you film for about an hour and a half, but you only see 12 minutes on TV. And you don't film for an hour and a half because they're cutting. You film for an hour and a half because they are just badgering you with questions. Like what you see in that 12 minutes is accurate. It's just, exemplified by an hour and a half. And what I always tell people is you have to keep in mind, and luckily having a performance background, and I also have family in the TV industry, I kind of knew what the situation was going to be going in, and I warn anyone going on the show about this. They are making real investments. The money is real, but the sharks investing in you is not the goal. The shark's goal is to make good TV. So the whole time you're filming, it's psychological warfare. They want an emotional reaction from you. They will ask you the same question 25 times in different ways just to try to get you to answer it differently so that they can crop it together that way. So I expected that going in, talking to other people that have filmed. I think they didn't realize it was going to be like that, and it can be quite jarring if you don't know what you're getting into. Luckily, I was prepared and just took it like a champ. But yeah, went through that whole process. It was very intense. Ended up getting an offer from Kevin with a royalty, which I knew I did not want. So I said, thank you, but no thank you. And then you wait like 5 months and suddenly you're on TV. And that part's really interesting because, again, I have such a strong memory of the way questions were asked and the order of events. But the way it airs is, completely backwards and things are cut. And you're like, I remember a whole conversation that's not on TV. That's interesting. So anyway, that was a wild experience. But all in, as psychologically interesting as that experience was, I have no regrets. Airing on the show is unbelievable marketing. We grew 450% that year after we aired, which did end up backfiring because that was the same time as the supply chain crisis. So that was a ride. But incredible exposure. Anyone that has an opportunity to go on the show should just know what you're getting yourself into before you go.
Yeah, I recall it was quite the event, an experience for you.
It was, yes. It was intense, to say the least.
Now, you have become the face of the brand.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what led you to go from using PR and marketing firms to completely going away from marketing spend and you now becoming a TikTok star.
It was really, as many things in the business have been, it was a innovation of necessity, I guess, so to speak. Of in 2021, two, I forget. Back then, there was something that happened called iOS 14, which fundamentally changed the way digital marketing worked. And so in the past, we'd run ad campaigns that would return, 10 to 12x on the dollar. Almost overnight, they were suddenly losing money, completely bleeding money, and nobody knew what to do. A lot of D2C businesses folded. So we turned those ads off, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out how are we going to make up for this huge revenue driver? Like, this was making us a ton of money, and now it just suddenly doesn't work anymore. How can we get that kind of exposure? And it took a while to figure out, and that was a weird time. But really, where the breakthrough came from was actually doing trunk shows. We had a brief trunk show partnership with Von Maur, which is a Midwest retailer similar to a Nordstrom, where I flew out and actually did demos with the shoes and had inventory and sold it, kind of a retail experience. And we noticed something very interesting of we would do these trunk shows for 2 days and we ran a test of on day one, I would be there staffing it myself, showing people how to use the product. And then I would also be teaching their floor staff how to do it. And then day two, I would leave and they would try to run it and we would see how that would go, which is actually what ultimately ended up with us not being able to get into Von Maur. Was what we learned was when I was there, the conversion rate was crazy. The 2 times we did this, the day I was there, we outsold the sales goal by 300%, both times. And actually, the one we did in Chicago, my fun stat was every woman that tried on a pair of shoes bought them, which is very rare on a retail floor. However, the second day when I wasn't there, sales completely dropped off, even if they were giving the same demo. And so I realized, God, it's like me talking about the shoes gets people really excited, but I can't be 8 million places at once. Oh, wait. Yes, I can by making a TikTok video. And so I thought, I'm going to test this. I'm going to get on TikTok and make videos talking about the shoes the same way I would in person on a retail floor, and we're going to see what happens. And what ended up happening was I posted 3 videos over the course of 3 days. And by day 4, I had 250,000 followers, which was wild. And so clearly it was working. I started leaning into that. We're now at a point where being a TikTok influencer is like a third of my job, which I didn't expect. I make a lot of content every day. But I have about 840,000 followers now, and I personally drive over 4 million people to our website every year.
That's amazing.
For free.
Yeah. And
which is
no
great.
marketing spend.
No marketing spend. It's a big part of our profit
Just
profile.
your time. And
Just my time.
energy.
Yes.
And you're obviously very passionate about
I'm very
the
passionate
shoes.
about it. Yeah. I can sling shoes all day for sure.
But you have to have a lot of, stress as a CEO, founder, a lot's on your shoulders. How do you manage stress, maintain your motivation for, your entrepreneurial journey?
That's been such an evolving thing. I think for every entrepreneur, the stress management piece is such a personal journey of figuring out what works for you. For me, I have to say a lot of the stress management has really just been a function of time, which newer entrepreneurs might not like to hear. But I think back to earlier in my career and something would go wrong and I would think it was catastrophic because I'd never dealt with it before. And so I'm sobbing on the floor, convinced the whole business is going to end. Then you do this for 8 years and you realize the things that you thought were big are insignificant. For instance, I actually remember calling you once, I think like our first year on market, we had a shipment get delayed a week. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to mess up the whole calendar. We're not going to be able to drop stuff at the right time. We're going to go bankrupt. Like, it was a disaster. Flash forward a year after that, we went into the supply chain crisis and I had a shipment stuck on a boat for 9 months. And we survived. And so now I just had another shipment delayed a month. And part of my, some of my team members were freaking out. And I was like, guys, it's whatever. Put the site on pre-order. Who cares? I mean, it's not great, but like literally who cares? So part of stress management, I think, is just the more experience you gain, the more perspective you get, the more you realize what the really big fires are versus what's just annoying. And once you have that perspective, it's a lot easier to stay even keel. Just the more you survive, the less unknown there is to be scared of, I guess, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then beyond that, I've always had I've gotten better at it, but a conscious focus on work-life balance, which I think is unusual for a lot of entrepreneurs. It's better now, but when I was coming up, there was still that attitude of, oh, you can only be a successful entrepreneur if you're working till 2 a.m. and you have no friends and you have no family and you shouldn't eat and you can't take a holiday and crazy stuff. What I've really came to appreciate quickly is a startup is a marathon, not a sprint, and you're not going to make it to the end if you fall apart personally. So I don't work on the weekends. I try to work a normal work day. I also appreciate I'm very lucky. I joke with my team. I'm not making insulin here. I'm making shoes. There's very few things that come up where it's like, if I don't deal with this in the next 30 minutes, right. Like it's a high heel and no one's going to die. It can probably wait till tomorrow. So I do appreciate maybe some industries are a little different, but I make it a personal priority to go on dates with my boyfriend, see my friends, take a long weekend when I can. There are those periods of time that are more sprint-like, where I'm working till 8 p.m. and, logging hours on a Saturday because something really pivotal has to get done. But when there's those more calm periods, I embrace it. If I'm done working, if all my work's done at 3 p.m., I'm out. Like
That's great.
Life's too short. Have a good time. Makes it a lot easier to make it through the tough weeks if you can just enjoy the good ones.
You've got it down.
Yeah.
I wish I knew that at your age. Now, if reflecting back, what do you wish that someone had told you at the beginning of your journey? Anything you wish you knew when you were 20?
So many things. Number one, you're not going to be a billionaire in a year. I was really convinced on that, so that's been a bummer. I think the biggest thing when I look back is just to trust your own gut and your own instincts. I had a lot of, God, what's it called? Imposter syndrome, I guess, when I was younger, or really just insecurity, I would say, because I was very aware that I was really young. I was very aware that I was really inexperienced. And so I had a very bad habit of, if someone I saw as more experienced than me disagreed with me, even if I felt like what I wanted to do was correct, I would just swallow that and do whatever they said. Because it was like, who am I to disagree with this person? Because, they're two decades older than me and have so much more experience. And every time I went along with that, I regretted it. And I think it's for 2 reasons. One, when you're building something completely new, part of that is people don't have experience in it, right? It's completely new. So like people might have relevant experience, but no one has built the company that you're building. You as a founder, I think, are inherently going to have a better gut check on what to do than someone from the outside coming in who's not as invested, doesn't understand the intricacies. And so I do think you just naturally, it doesn't mean you don't take outside feedback, but like at the end of the day, you have a better read on the direction to go and you should listen to that and lean into that. And then, yeah, kind of on the flip side of that, I guess, I actually don't even know where I was going to go with that. I got to be honest.
It's okay.
I don't know. It's going to come back to me. But yeah, listening to your gut is the big thing
Yeah,
of just
that's
know,
important.
yeah, know what you, now I remember. I was going to say the other thing I've learned, at the end of the day, as the founder, the outcome of your business is going to rest on your shoulders and your shoulders alone. If that company fails, all these people that gave you advice aren't going to be nowhere to be found. Ironically, if it does well, they're going to be telling everyone they had a much bigger role in it than they did, as I'm starting to learn. I've had a lot more CFOs than I knew. That's been interesting.
It's really
This last year, I've had like 3 different people tell mutual friends, like, oh, yeah, I was a CFO at Passion. And I'm like,
had zero CFO.
I've had no CFOs. So that's been interesting. I don't know why there's like a hyperfixation on that title specifically. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you were an accounting intern actually, but okay, sure. But at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to have to live with the outcome of whatever decisions are made. And something I found a lot of peace in is if I make a decision and it's a mistake, I at least will know I made the decision that felt right at the time, and I can hang my hat on that. I think nothing would haunt me more than if I felt like a decision was wrong, but I let someone else pressure me into doing it, and then the business fell apart. I would spend the rest of my life going, damn it, why didn't I just do what I thought I should have done? So you have to live with the outcome. So make the decisions that you can live with, is basically the moral of the story.
Great advice. And so going from a barista to a CEO and founder, how do you learn the skills to lead a company and read financial statements and, understand the timing of ordering inventory and how long it takes to get shipped and who you need to hire for marketing and what advisory boards you need to set up? How did that all come together in your journey over time?
Well, anyone that went to Cal Poly is going to chuckle, but it's learn by doing. Truly, it's just throwing yourself into things and being a sponge. I will say something I get asked a lot, like if I've had a mentor, and it's hard for me to answer that question because I don't feel like I've had one. I'm constantly learning from everything going on around me. And when you think of a mentor, people usually think of someone in a like authoritative position. I've learned just as much from interns I've hired as from people that have 3 decades experience. From all my CFOs, yes. But no, I think really it's just getting in, being a sponge, ask all the stupid questions, Google everything. God, with AI now, you can learn anything so quickly. But just pay attention to everybody around you and soak everything up and be open to admitting what you don't know and ask those questions and just learn while you do it. I think so many people don't start businesses because they're afraid of what they don't know. I love learning new things. I think it's fun. I'm not afraid of what I don't know. I want to learn something new. So just get out there and, do your best. And if something comes up where you up really bad, which I've fucked a lot of stuff up really bad, but then I learn from it and I don't fuck it up again. So, you just keep going.
What piece of advice would you give our young entrepreneurs that are just starting out and they're in year 1 of our incubator, going straight from the accelerator like you did?
Oh gosh. There's so many like little things. I think we've touched on some of them. First one is to trust your gut. Put the appropriate amount of, I like to think of like a radio, put the appropriate amount of volume on outside input. I think when you're younger, or at least I did, you have a tendency to turn it up to like full volume and it is all consuming. Turn that down a little bit. It's valuable, but focus on what you think is correct. get really, really focused on why you love what you do. Because there's going to be so much noise while you're building your business, and 98% of it is bullshit. So try to remember at the end of the day what you're trying to do and just focus on that. Anything that deviates from that, just say no. You need to be very radically intense about the way you prioritize your time, is I guess the main thing. It's
Great.
easy to get distracted.
Yeah, very
It's
easy.
very easy to get distracted. Starting a business is a lot more drama than people think it is.
Yes.
And
That's
most of it's useless. So just, yeah, just hire a good attorney and have them take care of it.
yes. That's the key advice right
Yes,
there.
get a Donica and send her all the annoying people. All my CFOs, Donica, I need this person to stop talking.
Yeah, exactly. So what's next for Passion and you?
Oh my goodness. It's an interesting question. You know, speaking of unprecedented times, for better or worse, there's a lot of changes coming potentially to the import climate right now. So I'm trying to figure out what that looks like. That'll be my next problem to solve. But as far as what's coming for us this year, a couple big goals that I'm really excited about. I mentioned earlier, we really want to get into retail. I see that as the next critical step for us. We're obviously doing really well online, but footwear is a very interesting category in fashion in the sense that 60% of women still won't buy a shoe until they can try it on. It's the hardest article of clothing to fit. You know, women that'll buy 19 sweaters online still won't buy a shoe online. So it's the one true brick and mortar business still in fashion. And so we're really pushing for a retail presence. We're hoping Nordstrom's going to be that answer. I like the simplicity and quick scale, as well as the credibility that comes with wholesale. So that's what we're pushing for. However, this is such an important strategic move for us that what I've told the team is 2025 is the year we try to get into wholesale. If we don't succeed, then 2026 is the year we open our own store, because we need to get shoes on feet in the next 2 years, one way or another. Opening my own store sounds really expensive, so I really don't want to do it. But if I have to do it, I will. So we're focused on that a lot. And then the second piece is really more brand marketing and credibility plays of, again, I do a lot of TikToks, which is great, but I appreciate that's good for a lot of people, but there's still a lot of skeptics out there that they see what we do, they see how different it is, and they see this, you know, 29-year-old gal they've never seen before with no real background still to this day. And of course, I'm going to say the product's great, right? So how do you solve that? One is let them try it on. Two is get somebody else talking about it. And so we're working a lot on how do we get passions onto red carpets? How do we get passions into the right publications, at the right events, with the right people? So kind of the brand building side of PR is something we're focused on.
Great. Questions for Haley? No.
Okay, there we go.
Well, I'm not good. Well, okay, Sean, you ready?
You can catch it, Sean. Yeah.
Thanks for being here, Haley. So one thing I was going to ask is we're also a consumer product good. And so what is the main barrier to getting into retail? Because that is something that we're in the process of. And what do we want to avoid and what do we want to kind of, learn from in terms of your experience?
Sure. Well, and I obviously am aware of your product, Sean. I think your retail experience might be a little different than mine. And actually, my retail experience, I think, is not a fair barometer for people trying to get into retail. The issue we run into is kind of unique. Of the block we keep coming up against actually comes down to the displays. So most big box retailers, their footwear section is pretty straightforward. They put a shoe on a shelf, and that's it. That's the sales process. They walk away, and if people think the shoe's pretty, they buy it, period. We are the first shoe that comes with instructions, which is kind of a unique problem to have to solve on a retail floor. And so the issue we've run into when we talk to wholesalers, they agree the product would do great on the floor with the right sales assets. The question is who pays for those sales assets? And if they give us those sales assets, does every other much larger account demand the same sales assets is really the issue that we're running into. Because in wholesale, there is a big degree of pay to play. So I'm making up numbers right now. We're just talking hypothetically. Steve Madden perhaps pays Nordstrom, I don't know, 20K per year per store for premium floor placement, right? Let's say it comes out, this small boutique brand that, by the way, exists basically to fundamentally undermine Steve Madden's business model, is coming into the floor with floor staff salespeople doing personalized demos and hand-holding customers through a buying process in a way that's way more engaging than just having a shoe on a shelf. How do those brands spending 20 grand a year per store feel about that?
Right.
Not great. So suddenly everybody needs a personal sales floor rep, even though none of those shoes need to be demonstrated, but they don't really care if this startup has it. They have to have it too. Suddenly the floor is overrun with salespeople. So that's been really the issue we have, is trying to negotiate something that works for us to get the point across, that makes the retailer comfortable that they're not fundamentally changing the entire dynamic of the floor and consequentially pissing off their much larger accounts. So that's what we're troubleshooting right now. Again, it's kind of unique for us. Really, the pitch that I have to make is the flip side of that, of the benefit. My pitch to them is, because of our heel kit business, my profit per square foot kicks Steve Madden's ass, right? He can only sell a shoe that's yay big and make 30% on it. I can sell an accessory that's this big and make 80%. So if they're stocking Pashion heels, they're cranking out way more revenue, which they're very intrigued by, but they don't want to piss anyone off either. So that's like the tension that we have right now. They'll make more money with me, but they might piss some people off. So that's what we're trying to figure out.
Thank you, because I know for us that actually uniquely directly applies. That's super
great.
helpful. So thank you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Always stick to profit per square foot. That's what retailers like. If you can make them more, because the store is only so big. So they need to figure out what they can put in the store to make as much money in as small of a space as possible. Yeah.
Hello.
Hey.
Thank you for coming in. And yeah, I especially appreciated you talking about how you're not just creating a brand or a product, you're creating a new category. And that's something similar to what we're doing with our wearable patch and app combo. And yeah, I also, here, let me just see here real quick. Sorry, one sec.
All good.
Okay, the document went away. But anyways, I was going to ask you about marketing, and we're in that early stage of launching the product and trying to do some grassroots marketing, and we're looking into social media as well as typical digital marketing. And I was curious, you talked about how you saw a lot of success on using TikTok, and how much of that is just you on there talking about the product versus you creating your own personal brand, and kind of like, how do you separate your personal social media versus what you're doing with the company, I guess would be the question.
Yeah, which is an interesting question. From a content split, I'd say 80% of it is talking about the shoes, and then 20% of it is a degree of personal branding, which then to your second question, my personal brand, at least on TikTok, I've really built as being the CEO of Pashion. So there actually isn't a lot of separation. Like at the company level, we consider my personal TikTok account a corporate brand account. And for anyone that's seen my content, it's basically just covert advertising. I mean, it's not even really covert. It's pretty in your face. It just seems more low key because it's my profile picture instead of a company logo. But really, we treat my account very much as a professional account with some personal branded content worked in to kind of make it feel like they're looking at an influencer, not at a company page. Yeah, to that point though, TikTok, I guess just something to say, there is a huge trend right now about founder-led marketing. Gen Z in particular hates following brands. They hate digital advertising. Their whole life they've been inundated by advertising every time they open their phone, and they can spot an ad or something disingenuine 10,000 yards away. Think about something I always thought about when I was working on that part of our strategy. For those of you that have TikTok, right? When you're scrolling, the minute you see that sponsored tag, what do? You scroll. Nobody wants to watch an ad. The beauty of creating content, even if it is an ad, but from a personal account, is it's not sponsored. It doesn't have an ad warning. Again, your profile photo is a person, not a brand. even though they're looking at branded content, it eliminates those triggers of, yeah, I'm watching an ad. And especially I think, because this has come up a lot, I talk to a lot of founders that are maybe a little camera shy and they're like, oh, I want to hire someone to talk about the product. I don't believe in that. People, again, want authenticity. They want to hear your founding story. If you watch my content, I'll get on like no makeup sitting on the floor and be like, I got really badly on a deal today. And people love it. They want to know what it's like to build a business. It makes them way more loyal to me and therefore to the brand. They buy the shoes to support me, not to support the company. The younger generation really likes people, not brands.
Right.
And so founder-led content, I think, is huge. Anyone that's building a business should be on social media talking about it from the founder side. There's so many examples on social media of that working well. And they essentially, even though they're personal accounts, become really high volume brand accounts.
Yeah, kind of sounds like a good way to vent as well. So you're saying
Oh, yeah.
not just talk about like the product, but also talk about what's going on in the business. And yeah, this just went wrong,
Exactly.
and that people find that interesting.
Plus, you'd be surprised the opportunities that come from it too. I've had a really great time with my following of they're super passionate about what we're doing and they care a lot about the journey I'm on. There have been a few examples where I go on and just talk about something I want to do. And once you have a following, like I have 800,000 people that follow me, who knows who they know? And suddenly my DMs blow up. A great example is actually getting on Nordstrom.com. That came from, I made a TikTok going, I really want to get into retail. I'd really like to partner with Nordstrom. I think it would be great. I tagged the Nordstrom account. All my followers started tagging the Nordstrom account and they DM'd me on TikTok and said, this is cool. We'll put you online. Let's try it out. And so that was a door that opened just from making content and having that following to talk about it. There've been a couple other things I can't talk about yet that have had the same impact. So I think this is like a different way to go with this, but I think that's the law of attraction, right? Get out there and ask for what you want, and you never know who's going to give it to you. So to your point, vent, but you can vent with a purpose.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And then last question for the marketing stuff. So you talked about the affiliate marketing through the wedding, bridesmaid. I don't know exactly what you were calling it, but I thought that was really clever. And so would you say the social media and that are your two primary ways you're driving traffic to your website?
Social media is number one. Number two is referrals.
Referrals.
And number three is the ambassador program. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Cool.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Of course.
If I sit down, I'll kill myself this time. Thanks for showing up. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. It's always good to hear a founder story. I work with a lot of different people that are founders lost away, and then they all have interesting stories on how they got there. One of the questions I have three questions for you. So the first question would be is, dealing with a lot of stuff in AI nowadays, you could solve technically the problem of using computer vision. You could have somebody use let's say their phone as their computer vision device. They could take a picture of their foot. You could manage that with AI, and you could take that information that comes out of that and you could match it correctly with a shoe. Are you looking at maybe doing something like that? Is that too complex for a small growing company, or is that something you would look into, being kind of here in the midst of the Silicon California, right?
We have looked into it. I love the idea. Unfortunately, the customer does not at this
They're
time.
not interested in it, huh?
No, they don't trust it. They don't think it's going to work. They still want to put it on their foot. To your point, I think as AI becomes more popular and the general consumer understands it, that's an amazing solution. And I think that's what's going to bridge the gap that we're seeing in the footwear market with everyone insisting on retail. But for now, the average, layperson does not trust that that's accurate, and they just want to go into a store and put it on. We actually launched a software that had a similar technology, I want to say about a year ago, and nobody used it.
Don't give up. I think.
Oh, I won't. I would love it. You know how much more money I would make if I could stay all online? Like, I don't personally want to go into a store. It sounds like a nightmare. I just don't have a choice. So I'm right there with you. I think it would be great, but we've got to think about this is an impulse purchase for women that are 30 to 40. It's a lot to ask of an impulse purchase to scan their foot. Plus, that's a lot of pictures of feet for me to have. Which I'll handle. I already get a lot of feet pics that I don't ask for. So anyway, but yeah, I agree. It's the future. I just think it's not quite there yet for your average consumer.
No, good. Second quick question is, You know, so 500% or 50% of Fortune companies die within 10 years. Most people don't know that number, and the question is why, right? And there's a lot of reasons why Fortune companies, it's either through acquisition or through failure. And most of the times, though, it really, even with acquisition and maybe with failure, it's a lot of times it's because they just didn't keep up with the market.
Sure.
So you're saying, listen, I got to be careful. I got to keep the volume low. I got to be careful. I got to screen really, really well on this input that I'm getting and for the next thing. But you never want to be that guy that says, I'm all in on buggy whips, you know, and then all of a sudden, a few years later, like, you know, all of a sudden the buggy whip market's gone. So how do you look at those decisions on what you decide to keep and you decide to discard in reference to ideas that come to you as far as staying fresh? Like, let's say you decided, well, we want to go into the men's market. So we know that guys go to Hawaii and they go to a restaurant and they're wearing sandals, but you can't wear sandals at a restaurant. So you find some sort of a flap to go over the sandals and now it's a shoe. I mean, how does that, you know, somebody comes up to you with that idea. How do you filter that?
Sure. I mean, that idea specifically, we're very laser focused on women's footwear. That's what I know as a founder, and that's what's genuine to me. I'm not going to stand here and say I can sell shoes to men. I don't think that's what I should spend my time on. But as far as, you know, staying fresh and focused, I again think something that we have a really unique advantage with that I don't take for granted is we do have utility IP on our technology, and it really is a new category. When I think of the category that we're building, we're in the infancy stages. There's so much more innovation to be done here and a lot of parallel investment. As I talked about, how do you store the heel kits? What are the additional accessories for purses and suitcases and travel containers and all these different things for that side of the business? Not to mention one major upside of fashion is it is inherently innovating constantly because of seasonal trend. So we're always figuring out what's the new hot color that everyone's going to want to buy. Women buy shoes nonstop all the time. So, you know, there's always going to be the new seasonal thing. And so really our focus strategically is how do we make sure we're in line with the market? We have the product that she wants when she wants it. And that inherently lets us keep growing the business pretty massively and directly just from continuing to innovate on the fashion trend side of things. So I don't worry about that too much right now, just because this really is a very infant category. We are not even close to scratching the surface on what we can do, and it's a pretty straightforward path to innovation. Now, 10 years from now, am I going to be a little more stressed about figuring something out? Probably. But I am sadly not at the scale of a company yet where I can be worrying about problems 10 years in the future. I've got like maybe a 2-year radar on me at this point. So we'll worry about that a little later.
Yeah, nice. We have time for one more.
We have a couple online we need to get to. We're already a few minutes.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, like I said, we're a couple minutes over, so we'll just wrap this up quickly. Just wanted to get to a couple questions online here. McCall said, thank you for coming today. I was wondering, with having trouble raising, what are some things that you look for in an investor to know if there's long-term alignment?
It's a good question. It's a good question if I'm going to give a really honest answer. When you have a hard time raising and you're desperate for money, the long-term alignment is, will they cut me a check today? That's the pragmatic answer. Luckily, we're at a stage now where we are profitable, and so I'm able to change. But I want to be very clear, you know, in the past, it's been, is this someone that I trust? I have said no to a few investors because I just thought they were snaky or not the right fit. But I didn't really have the luxury of going, yeah, I'm going to turn away money. That was not a luxury afforded to me until recently. So now with our profits, we actually are starting to think a little more strategically about bringing some partners into the business. And my main priority for those discussions is I really want to bring partners to the table that bring more than just money. I want to bring partners that have strategic relevance that's aligned with our growth goals. I can't really say more on that right now, but we're working on some exciting conversations where it's more than just capital that's coming in.
And then Rainey asked, have you collaborated with other brands, or do you plan to in the future, say like another women-owned business, et cetera?
Yes, we've collaborated with quite a few, and we have more coming down the pipeline. I really love supporting female founders. It's something that I've done as some of that personal branding on my social media as I advertise other female brands for free. I buy the product. I just, it's very interesting to me to now have 800,000 followers suddenly. And I always remember how much I wished someone with that following would talk about my brand 5 years ago. And so I talk about other founders as much as possible. But yes, we did a collaboration that we developed specialty purses that have compartments to hold your heels when you're on the go. And we did that with Glass Ladder & Co., which is a brand founded by Megan Tellez, who's a wonderful female founder. We're working on a collaboration right now for customizable ankle chains with different charms and things, which will be really fun. We also have contracts with our first guest designer, who's an influencer coming in to do her own line with us. So yes, love bringing other women into the brand, whether that be in a product collaboration or as a guest designer. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to do cool things with other women.